This is what a skinny border looks like and what it can do for a quilt. There's no problem with just putting a blue at the edge of this quilt. It would be fine, but by putting a skinny in a strong color that goes with the rest of the quilt, you have just enhanced it enormously. Normally, a border is put onto a quilt, right sides together to the body of the quilt, seamed and then sewed in that direction. But what we're going to do now is we're going to insert a skinny border approximately 1/4 inch. And the way we do it is this. All the strips that you use for the skinny border are 3/4 inch wide. They can be pieced if your piece is long and they need to be, but 3/4 is the width. The first step is to simply put it right sides together to the body of the quilt. Pretend this is the body of the quilt. Okay. I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to sew it on just as though I were putting a normal border on. Right sides together, skinny 1/4 inch on my machine. Remember my little piece of junk? Okay. All the way down one side. Okay. So far we're doing what you do with a normal border. Now here is the first difference. Come to the iron. Normally a border would be pressed away from the body of the quilt. In this case, we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to press the border toward the body of the quilt. This is the first difference. Sometimes this is difficult because your quilt will have piecing and seams in it, so it won't always be as simple as it is when I'm just using one piece of fabric. So here is my 3/4 inch strip sewed to the side of the quilt and pressed to the quilt, to the body of the quilt, not away from the quilt. Now we come back to the machine. And I now want to attach my outside or bigger border. So what I do now is take the entire quilt, the entire piece I'm working on, and turn it over and upside down, just like that. Take the bigger border and place it underneath, right sides together to what you have before you, and put the edges together, and now come to the machine. And what you're going to do now is, instead of sewing a 1/4 inch seam here, you're going to use the left side of your presser foot as a guide to give you a perfectly straight seam line that is parallel to the first seam that you made. Now, I have a fair amount of variation in what my needle can do. The closer the needle is to your seam line, the narrower your skinny will be. The further away it is, the wider it will be. Your machines will vary. There's not much you can do about what your machine can do. I'm going to move this a little bit to the left so that we get a really thin one. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is sew the bottom piece on, which is the big border. It's underneath, and all I'm doing is guiding the left side of my presser foot now along the stitching line that I have created before. So you can see that I am sewing a channel with a perfectly even width because I have a seam line to follow and I have the metal of my presser foot. Again, left side of the presser foot all the way to the end. Okay. Now let's come back to the iron. And now I am going to press away from the skinny border, and look at, I made a very narrow one because I put my needle very close to the left edge of my presser foot, but look at how perfectly even it is. This one is a little bit wider because I had my needle a little bit further away from the left edge, again the left edge of the presser foot, And that is it. It is the sewing of the edge of the presser foot to the sewing line that you can see. Use a thread color that you can see, and that gives you a perfect channel. The width is determined by what your needle movement is on the machine. The only thing, come back to the cutting table a minute, the only thing that I want to make clear is that I have done two sides like that. Don't do this. What you're going to do is put the skinny on all four sides, like that. If I did this and then went to put another border on, what would happen is I would get a piece of my skinny that goes all the way across the edge of my border, which I may not want, probably not want. So what you do is, and this will all be in your instruction handout, is put two sides pressed to the body of the quilt, and then two more, top and bottom, pressed to the body of the quilt. Once you have done that, then you can take whatever your border will be, and again, turn it over, upside down. Second border goes underneath, and you guide the left side of your presser foot to the seam line that you can easily see. And that's it. That's how you get that perfect channel, whatever width your machine needle will give you. And that's it.